Hello YouTube friends and neighbors. In this episode of Guitar Lick Moment, we will be exploring another extremely important bass player technique, string muting and dampening. I think many would agree that these two techniques are the most essential components of a bass player's technique package. Without an effective string muting and dampening technique, your playing will sound sloppy and undefined, and who really wants that? Hopefully nobody. But what is muting and dampening? Well, muting is when a vibrating string is stopped by either your hand, finger, or some other object so that it no longer vibrates and is dead silent. Dampening is also achieved with your hand, fingers, or a tool, but the goal is not to silence the string completely, but to merely limit its vibration, altering its volume and tone. Muting and dampening strings on an electric bass can be achieved in numerous ways. A part of traditional two-finger bass technique relies on the ability to use one finger to strike a string and the other to mute the adjacent string in sort of a fingers do the walking method. Being able to do this should eventually become second nature for anybody beyond the beginner's stage, and really isn't the focus of this video, but I've included some footage of my personal two-finger method to illustrate the muting aspect. My focus for this episode is in replicating vintage tones on a modern instrument using a different sort of right and left hand dampening technique. The old school method to achieve the classic electric bass tone is simple. Use a sponge under flat wound strings near the bridge of your instrument. This dampens the strings, killing overtones and sustain, and is most associated with the finger sound of Motown bassist James Jamerson or the 60s West Coast pick sound of Carol Kaye. While using a sponge is effective, it doesn't offer any control over its variability. It's either in place and it's working, or it's not, and it's not. Modern right-hand finger techniques enable us to mute or dampen strings and get tones similar to Jamerson and Kaye with our fingers, and vary the degree from full dead thud to barely dampened, controlled sustain, even with the round wound strings that are favored by modern players. Personally, I use my right pinky finger for a good portion of this kind of string-to-string control, especially if I'm trying to achieve a Motown sound. I will either use it on an individual string or lay it across all the strings near the bridge and pluck strings with my other fingers. Give it a try, and try other ideas you have. Not everyone's hands have the same geometry, and you may need to find your own way to approach this task. When it comes to sounding, dampening, and muting strings, your right hand does most of the work. But let's not forget the left hand, the fretting hand. This hand can help with muting and dampening duties. A common way to achieve this is to use your first finger to fret the notes on the fingerboard and use the leading three fingers to float over the strings, which offers full control over how much or how little pressure is applied to the string. This can be handy if your right hand is engaged in duties that make muting with it difficult, like slapping. Left-hand muting is essential in cleaning up your slap sound. Of course, there are as many different techniques for dampening and muting as there are bassists. I hope I have at least inspired you to explore what works for you. These are a couple of the most common methods that I have gravitated towards over the years. Thanks again for watching my video. Every single view is much appreciated. Feel free to comment or ask questions or leave suggestions for future episodes. In the future, I'd like to have some other local talent do some guest spots and demonstrate some aspects of their mechanical techniques so that we can explore and discuss those. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss an episode. See you next time.